Welcome starting soon. Subscribe. The moment I realized my parents had spent my inheritance was the same moment my sister pulled into the driveway in a brand new car. Everyone was outside, smiling like it was some kind of celebration. My mom clapped her hands excitedly. "Isn't it beautiful?" she said proudly. The car shined under the sunlight. Red paint, brand new. My sister stepped out, tossing her hair like she had just won a trophy. "Do you like it?" she asked me with a smirk. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at my dad. He avoided my eyes. Something in my chest felt heavy. Where did the money come from? I asked quietly. My sister laughed before anyone else could speak. "Oh, please," she said. "Don't tell me you still care about that little inheritance Grandma left." My mom sighed dramatically. "Sweetheart, you weren't even using that money. It was just sitting there." My father finally spoke. "And your sister needed a car for work," he added, like that explained everything. I stared at them. The inheritance they were talking about wasn't just money. It was everything my grandmother had saved for me. She used to say it was for my future, for college, for a start in life. But apparently my future had been traded for a car. My sister leaned against the door proudly. "You should be happy for me," she said. "Families help each other." Then she added the part that made everyone laugh. "Besides, what were you even going to do with it?" I felt every eye on me, waiting for me to get angry, waiting for me to argue. But I didn't. I just nodded slowly. Something strange happened in that moment. Instead of anger, I felt clarity, not about the money, about them, about how easily people justify taking from the quiet person in the room. My mom mistook my silence for agreement. "See," she said, "he understands." My dad gave a small relieved smile. My sister tossed me the keys for a second before catching them again. "Don't worry," she joked. "Maybe someday you'll afford something like this." Everyone laughed. I looked at the car one last time. Then I turned and walked back inside the house. No shouting, no arguing, just silence. Behind me, the laughter continued like nothing had happened. But upstairs in my room, my phone buzzed. A hospital number flashed on the screen. It was the hospice where my grandmother was staying. When I answered, the nurse spoke softly. "She asked us to call you," she said. My grandmother's voice came through the phone, weak but steady. "Did they tell you about the money?" I paused. Then I said quietly, "Yes." There was silence for a moment. Then my grandmother took a slow breath. "Good," she said. "I needed to know if they'd really do it." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" Her voice became calm, almost certain. "It means," she said gently, "I think it's time I made one phone call." And suddenly I realized something. They thought they had already won. They had no idea what my grandmother was about to do next. After that call, my grandmother didn't explain anything else. She simply told me to focus on my life. "Don't argue with them," she said softly. "Just watch." The line disconnected a moment later. Downstairs, I could still hear my family celebrating my sister's new car. Laughter echoed through the house like nothing important had happened. And maybe to them, nothing had. But to me, something had changed. Not because of the money, because of the realization. When people believe you are powerless, they stop hiding who they really are. Over the next few weeks, my parents acted like everything was normal. My sister drove her new car everywhere. She made sure to park it right in front of the house every night where everyone could see it. Sometimes she even revved the engine when I walked outside. "Jealous," she would tease. I never answered. Instead, I started spending more time away from the house. More hours working. More hours studying. More hours planning a future that didn't depend on anyone in that house. Meanwhile, small cracks began to appear in my family's perfect picture. At first, it was just quiet phone calls, then arguments, then tension at dinner. One evening I walked into the kitchen and heard my dad whispering on the phone. "No, that's impossible," he said nervously. "There must be some mistake." He hung up the second he saw me. My mother started checking the mail every morning like she was expecting something she didn't want to see. My sister noticed the tension too. "What's going on?" she asked one night. My parents quickly brushed it off. "Nothing," my mom said too quickly. But the calm in the house had changed. A week later, the first letter arrived. I saw it sitting on the kitchen table. A legal envelope. My father opened it slowly. The color drained from his face as he read. My mother grabbed the paper from him. Her hands started shaking. "What is this?" she whispered. My sister leaned over their shoulders. "What happened?" No one answered for a long moment. The meeting happened a week later. My parents sat across from the lawyer, nervous and silent. Then the lawyer opened a folder. "The inheritance account belongs to your grandmother," he said calmly, "and she never authorized the withdrawal." My mother's face went pale. "The funds must be returned immediately." My sister whispered, "But the car?" "Then the car will be sold," the lawyer replied. At that moment, everyone finally understood. They thought silence meant weakness. They didn't realize it was simply patience. Then my father finally spoke. "It says the inheritance account was never ours to access." My mother looked confused. "What do you mean? We used it already." "That's the problem," my father muttered. My sister laughed nervously. "Okay, so what?" "It was Grandma's money. She gave it to the family." My dad shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "she didn't." The room suddenly felt smaller. The letter explained everything in cold, professional language. The money had been placed in a protected account, one that required a specific authorization. Authorization my parents never actually had. My mother's voice became panicked. "But the bank approved the withdrawal." My father looked back down at the paper. "They're saying the account holder reported the transaction." My sister frowned. "Account holder?" Then all three of them slowly looked at me. I hadn't touched the letter. I hadn't said a single word, because I already knew the answer. The call from the hospice. My grandmother had sounded weak, but her mind had been perfectly clear. My sister crossed her arms. "Did you do something?" she asked suspiciously. I shook my head calmly. "No," which was the truth. I hadn't done anything. My grandmother had. My father picked up the letter again. His voice was quiet now. "It says the account holder contacted their attorney." My mom whispered the question everyone was thinking. "Attorney?" My father read the final line of the letter out loud. "There will be a formal meeting next week to resolve the matter." Silence filled the room. My sister glanced nervously out the window at her new car sitting in the driveway. For the first time since the day she got it, she didn't look proud. She looked worried. And I simply sat there quietly, watching, because while they were just starting to understand what was happening, I had already heard the calm certainty in my grandmother's voice that night. And something told me that meeting next week was going to change